And welcome to yet another episode of the Visionary Corner. In fairness, you should be welcoming me because this is your segment. But
welcome, Candace. So nice to have you again.
Thank you. It is an honor. But Brian, today's theme and topic that I was thinking around, especially because, the company faced a little bit of a crisis recently, is how do you feel? Because I had anxiety when things were starting to happen. And I want to know when something like that, presents itself, I'll say, as a crisis happens for a company, what do you feel? Like, I want to know your emotional state when that happens.
I was actually pretty relaxed. I think that, okay, so it's an interesting context. There's two ways of looking at this. The first is, we use something called natural energy testing. And, when you define what your natural energy is, we always say that in a crisis, your natural energy will always come out. So by nature, I'm a innovative thinker. So it's, I think, more natural for me in my energy. When there's a crisis, I'm immediately going into innovation. Like, what can we do different? What can we do to change it? So it's difficult to say sometimes. Like in our team, we've got all the energies around us, the sensory energies, which are the more grounded energies. You're kind of in the middle on the right. No, you're on the top next to me, actually. So you're also kind of innovative, but the sensory energies tend to get a little bit more nervous of something like what happened there because they don't naturally think of the solutions. But in our business, of course, in our culture, we have solution orientated or solution focused as a key value in our company. And I was very proud of how everyone actually responded, particularly those at the top, Stephen, our COO, our marketing team, because instead of firstly, the crisis, without going into detail, involved a massive sort of loss of data. And, you're immediately thinking like, how did that happen? Did somebody sabotage it? Did somebody hack into us? That's happened before. So you've got to have it in your mind. Did somebody make a big mistake? What happened? In that case, there was no need to focus on the problem. The problem was very clear. The data was gone. How do we get it back? How do we fix it? Whatever. And so, we went straight into solution mode. And I think that when your brain goes into looking at something as a challenge and how can you overcome it, it becomes proactive and you don't get all, freaked out about it. A friend of mine said, yeah, but, knowing what happened is important. And I said, yes, down the line, because you don't want the unknown, in case it can happen again. And we did find out what happened and it was fine. But the point is, it's the key thing is when it's never a crisis, it's never a problem, it's always a challenge. And when you're solution orientated, we in that value, we say, don't bring a problem to the table without at least one or two solutions, even if they're crazy solutions. Not all of our team are naturally solution orientated. So it's not to expect them all to come with a perfect solution, but it's just that when we think of the solution, we change our mind. So instead of going into that worry and that anxiety and that freak out state because something went wrong, when we focus in on the solution, we naturally go into that kind of creative, how do we fix it? It's actually a proactive, positive state. And that's the thing to always remember. So I think it was Tony Robbins with somebody years ago. I remember them saying that we spend 80% of our time often focusing on the problems and less than 20% on the actual solutions. And if we can just reverse that and spend 20% or less, clarifying the problem or the challenge, and 80% of the time on the solution, we'd actually get so far in resolving things and moving forward. So not by nature, by modern evolved nature, but not by how our brain is supposed to work, we get stuck in the worry and the problem, or what does it mean and what could happen? So in the cases of most crises, you kind of immediately go, what could happen? And then you become more worried about the possible outcomes of the crisis instead of actually what you can do to resolve it. I actually read a book that I highly recommend everyone, by Dale Carnegie, called, Stop Worrying and Get On With Your Life, or something like that. Stop Worrying, Live Your Life. I think it was something to that effect. And he talks about how, one of the senior people that he spoke to, because he interviews a lot of, very successful people. This is obviously like 100 years ago or whatever. But they said, their technique was when a crisis came or when something was there to worry about, they just sat down and imagined the absolute worst thing that could happen. So I said, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, my wife can walk out of me. Oh, the business can go bankrupt. Oh, whatever. Like, okay, let's just get comfortable with the absolute worst thing that can happen. And then we start to work backwards and say, what can we do one step at a time to prevent that from happening? Because actually, and it works, by the way, I've tried this. You like immediately you go like, oh, okay, so I could lose that, or the business could shut down. All right, well, it's not the first time, it's happened before. Let's see what happens, and then you sort of, because now you're sitting worrying about what might happen. Well, just imagine the worst thing can happen and then work backwards from that. And the minute you start working backwards, you're asking what little thing can we do to make it not happen? What little thing can we do to improve the situation? You're going to solution mode. As soon as you go into solution mode, your mind becomes creative and you see the positive. So the point is, the brain is designed to resolve things, designed to answer questions. If your question is, oh my goodness, what if this happens? You're going to have terrible answers. If your question is, how do we prevent it from happening? What can we do to make this a positive? Then you're going to have very positive answers. And I think that's an interesting thing. Not just how can we resolve the problem. Immediately in our conversations in the company, it was, this is going to serve us. This is going to make us do something we've been procrastinating on doing. This is going to, whatever. In other words, we're immediately looking at that actually this will be a blessing, not the potential curse that it looked like when it happened. So all of these factors, it's our choice. Where do we focus? Where do we focus? So I like to say, focus on solutions. When you have a problem, firstly, change the term to a challenge, and then sit down and say to yourself, what can you do? And that is where the power lies, because that state of mind, solution-oriented mind, is a positive mind, but the worrying mind is a negative mind, and you definitely don't want to get stuck there.
Oh, that is so powerful. I think that was what someone out there needed to hear, Brian, because you touched on so many things. And I don't think it's just purely in a business context. I think it's a life principle, right? If you focus on solutions, then you will fix it. And I love that when you said, what is the worst thing that can happen? I think, but Brian, to get to that kind of mindset, to get to that psyche, I know you mentioned it's your natural energy flow, but did it take you some time to get there, to really fully live in acceptance of that?
It's a consciousness that I think a lot of, I'm busy listening to Eckhart Tolle's, The Power of Now, and bless Eckhart, but he's like when he talks about in his wonderful little German kind of, accent, how you should sit outside yourself and observe your thoughts and watch them. And then he does the same with emotions. Sit outside yourself and observe your emotions and watch them. And I always like, watch your thoughts, like watch. But he's creating that he's opening that barrier where you start to create a consciousness of what you're thinking and what you're feeling and how they interrelate to your personal fulfillment and to your spiritual existence. And I think the key thing is that's all it really becomes. In other words, your ability to catch yourself when you're thinking negative. They like to say positive thinking is not the solution. I get it, but actually in context, the ego, which is our active mind, is often there to sabotage us. It was like, it's John Keogh who said, it's the great trickster, the mind. It's the great trickster. It's actually there to BS you into believing stuff that's not true about yourself and about what's going to happen, and it becomes very self-defeatist. And we've got to understand that it's a mix-up between the original old mind, which was designed to protect us, and the crazy confusion that we've created in the modern world that has led us to come to this place of negativity where our actual ego, our actual mind does not serve us most of the time. Now, it's capable of serving us. So the first thing we have to do is stop it, catch it. Gabby Bernstein also talks about this. I'm actually just sitting with a book here on The Universe Has Your Back. And she talks about how you can't fight the ego. You can't go like, oh, you terrible ego, I hate you, you're destroying my life, because it's almost like this, power that sort of comes back to fight back. You have to just acknowledge and understand that it's there. And so you've got to create an awareness and saying, wait a minute, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? Why am I? So worry which is all this is fear. I mean, Eckhart actually said everything just integrates into this context of fear or pain from an emotional side, fear from a thinking side. What could go wrong? Oh, something happened. What could go wrong? I should just tell everyone, I mean, we're in this major solar eclipse time, where suddenly the sun is going to be throwing these flares down. You just prepare yourself for lots of weird SHIT that's going to happen, because ever since I started to learn about Mercury, I don't know, all these kind of weird things, because I wasn't into them, renegade, I think it's called, and stuff like that. You suddenly realize every month of every year, there's a reason why things could go wrong. It's okay. It's just part of life. It's how, it's a famous old cliche. It's not what happens, it's how we deal with what happens. And that's really what it is. So if we create a consciousness, in a simple term, of watching our thoughts, watching our feelings, and going, wait a minute, why do I feel like this now? And wait a minute, why am I thinking this now? And then you catch yourself, and then you say, wait a minute, instead of going, what if? Why don't we go, what if it comes out positive? I mean, I always love that. It's like, you can still do the what if, but because the what if is normally, what if this happens? And oh my God, I'm going to lose my kids and my whole life's going to collapse and I'm too old and I can't handle it anymore. It's like, no, what if it turns out to be the most amazing thing that happened in your life? What if it completely transforms your business? And what if the solution of this actually becomes the way you're going to double the size of your life, your business next year, or increase the quality of your relationships or whatever? The irony is you can change what if just to a positive. So we have to become conscious, catch ourselves, change the focus of our thought. I mean, Candace, you know it. You've been through lots in your life, but we all know it if we think about it. Man, I mean, somebody, my housekeeper came in here yesterday, and she was upset, and I love her. She's like, but they shouted at her in the taxi because they think she hadn't paid her fare. It's a funny thing in South Africa, guys. If you don't know how they pay fares in taxis, it's kind of like really everyone puts the money together and just hands it to the guy in the front, and then it didn't add up. So somebody hadn't paid, and she was upset for the whole morning. I could hear her. She's very sensitive, and she's upset because these people shouted at her. And eventually I sat her down and I said, what power? Firstly, these people aren't even thinking about you anymore. They don't even know who you are anymore. They've forgotten about you the minute you left the taxi. You still carrying this pain, that they shouted at you for the whole day, and it's making you miserable. And I took her through this understanding that, we just got to catch ourselves and go, this is ridiculous. I'm getting upset about something I have no control over. You can choose those thoughts. You can choose what you focus on. So that is the simple context between a positive thought train. The mind can serve us as much as it beats us up. We just got to catch it, quieten it a little bit, change the direction in which it's thinking. And then every problem becomes a solution, and every problem becomes an opportunity. Every challenge becomes an opportunity. And guys, get this. I was talking to Dr. John DiMartini last night, our time, when we were interviewing him. And it was like, he's like, he's got that great saying, it's on the way, not in the way. And the truth is, everything serves us. So when something like that, what happened to us over the weekend on Monday, I think there was that my immediate attitude was something good's going to come out of this. And I think something good's coming out of it already. And if you think like that, you just negate the stress and you negate the freak out, and you don't have to run for the whiskey. You can actually just relax and have a normal bottle of water and do your yoga. Rather than freaking out. But yeah, I mean, we can go on about it for ages, but I think consciousness is the key thing. Watch and learn to listen to what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And then when you catch yourself feeling something that is obviously telling you something, or thinking something that's going down the wrong channel, then, and they're interrelated obviously, then change it. It's as simple as that. And if you need to go and this is why breath work and even yoga, I mean, yoga is such a beautiful, we both did yoga this morning, guys. So, separately, but, but yoga is so cool because my mind is going in a million miles an hour while I'm doing my breathing and stuff. But by the end of a session, I find it can really focus a lot easier, because just that movement, and guess what? It is mostly the breath that actually just calms you down and puts you in a place where suddenly solutions can become a lot clearer than when you're getting all freaked out about stuff.
Oh, it's not in the way, it is the way. I love it. I love it, Brian. And this has been a great episode. And I do have to mention, my heart sang a little bit when you mentioned Mercury retrograde. I was like, he's coming to my side.
There's always some retrograde or some planet that's somewhere or whatever.
I will do your chart, Brian. Don't worry. I'm an astrology Genius. Oh, no, Brian, this has been a phenomenal session. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
It's a pleasure. And just remember, it's what you focus on. So focus on the solutions and not the problems, and life will become a lot easier.